Welcome to Obstacle Running Adventures,
the podcast that fuels your passion for obstacle course racing,
running, and all things adventurous.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or a weekend warrior,
we've got news updates as well as interviews with athletes
and other key members of our athletic community.
As a weekly show since 2017, we have covered everything from
championship and virtual races
to fundraising events and FKTs. And now, here are your hosts,
Michael Stefano and Caitlin Ritter.
Standing on the corner, lost all my clothes.
Hey guys, it's Michael Stefano.
And Caitlin Ritter. And Mikey, how was your weekend?
Pretty good. We just got back from Florida. That was a fun trip. We finally went down to see my aunt's house down there and celebrate my stepdad's 50th birthday? 60th birthday. Holy crap.
Yep, the big 6-0.
Also, fun fact, turning my stress into stats. This is our 7th ever Wednesday release episode. The last one was 345, Chris Ruglowski. On winning the Grit Games back in August 2023. So, fun fact there. Caitlin, let's give a shout out to our sponsors.
Shout out Mudgear. Use code ADVENTURE for 15% off your next Mudgear purchase. And Caterpie. Use code OCRReport20 for 20% off your next Caterpie purchase.
Perfect. It's not the first episode of the month, so we're just going to thank the $5+ Patreon supporters.
Jason Dupree, Samantha Thompson, Bradley Keel, Charlotte Engelman, Aaron Grindstaff, Laura and Stephen Ritter, Hank and Arlene Stefano, Cheryl Miller, Jessica Johnson, Christopher Hoover, Kevin Gregory Jr., Evan Irick, Brent George, Logan Nagel, Seth Renderknech, and Steve Bacon over at the New England OCR Expo.
Yeah, thank you so much for the support. We greatly appreciate it. And to the OCR Report for being a great home for us on the internet.
And to Will Hicks,
the Podfather. Check it out over at the OCRReport.com. I forgot to check to see if they had any questions, because I usually ask them if they have any questions before an interview, and no one responded. So there was that.
I had a question, but I forgot to respond.
Oh, happens. And a shout out to our sponsored athletes.
Javier Escobar, who is celebrating 3 years since he absolutely destroyed his leg. He celebrated with a 10-mile run.
Nice.
Kelly Sullivan, Ryan Brizolara, Joshua Reed.
Who is getting me Spartan Ultra ready?
Getting you Spartan Ultra ready, right?
Me? Yep.
And Kevin Gregory Jr.
Yeah, hosting first official Deca Atlas event next weekend. Are you trying to tell me that Kelly Sullivan hasn't posted anything for updates?
No, she hasn't.
Oh, okay. Well, hope she's doing well. Poll results, I don't think we did a poll.
I didn't post a poll, but I posted a question, and a lot of the answers were the same, so I feel like that's kind of like a poll.
Okay.
I asked people...
Is this about the shoes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this could be helpful for some people. For World's Toughest Mudder shoe recommendations.
Yes, I asked people for World's Toughest Mudder shoe recommendations, and people said... I included that I was flat-footed, and people said Ultras. Somebody said Ultras Lone Peak at a half size for your later laps. Somebody said I use the Merrell Long Sky 2 and the Merrell Agility Peaks 5 for my escapade. Somebody said I absolutely love my Ultra Long Peaks, Lone Peaks, VJ Max 2. Somebody said Topos Ultra Venture. Speed Goats or Hoka Tecton, and the last one said Brooks Trail Shoes.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the responses. That was a lot, so greatly appreciated there. We're going to skip Meme of the Week and head right on over to quick news, starting with the event that we're going to be covering, hosted by Mud, Sweat, and Tears on April 19th in Randolph, New Jersey.
Yes.
Very excited for that. Also, weekend or two after that is Obstacle Wonderland. We won't be able to make it to that, but you can use code ADVENTURE, all caps, for 15% off any race distance that weekend.
That's exciting.
Next up, I wanted to talk about Lauren Weeks, who's going to be working with The Feed.
The podcast?
Nope.
Oh.
I thought the same thing. The Feed is a sponsorship. Let's have it pulled up here.
Lauren posted, I am honored to announce that I am partnering with The Feed Me this year. This is a company that I have trusted with my fueling and nutrition needs for a long time. It means the world to me that they have chosen to both support me and help me chase some big goals and adventures this year.
Nice. Next up, speaking of hybrid fitness, there was a 4-person team new world record set.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. 53:14. Oh boy. It was by the Hybrid Engine, coached by Zara, Lauren A. Griffith and Lauren E. Weeks. So congratulations to them.
The Hyrox community has been vocal about their disappointment with the new leaderboard design and user experience. Lots of rumors out there, including Hyrox and Micah had an unhappy split that rushed the new site before it was ready. This comes directly from Hybrid Fitness Media. Hybrid Fitness Media. The source also told him that the website integration was the biggest issue. And then I just went on Hybrid Fitness Media, and 5 days ago, I guess the leaderboard is back to the way they like it.
Good. Yeah, that's been a big point of contention for a lot of athletes, and good to see that that is fixed.
The final addition to the 2025 Mudgear Hannibal Race official pro team is Courtney Washington.
Yeah, it seems like it was a somewhat more last-minute decision. Congratulations to her. Looking forward to finding out who she is.
That's awesome.
Next up, this is a gory video. Again, links down below for the full pictures, news stories, and in this case, video. Black Canyon's Ultras posted, what does it look like to be a complete badass? It looks like Colorado Springs local, Lacey Borges. It says the Black Canyon National Trail took out a lot of runners down this weekend, but not Lacey. After clipping a toe and slamming her head on one of the trail's many rocks, she absolutely prevailed, completing 10 more arduous miles to her race. No words, Lacey, you are amazing. And she's a member of the USR community. And yeah, for anyone that knows, if you cut your head, it bleeds a lot. But yeah, she looks like a badass. This next news story is more of a strongman story, but it's fitness related, and I really like this guy. He seems really fun. This posted by Sagastad Official. The world's strongest man, Martin Sleesis, will launch the world's largest Viking ship during Sagastad Launch 25. So, he's awesome.
Super cool.
Yeah, very, I don't know if I'll be able to, I don't know how to tune in or anything like that, but that sounds very, very cool.
That's crazy.
He's a very fun, weird guy. I love it. Yep.
Nell Rojas posted, when I touch my legs or abdomen, or look at my face in the mirror, I don't even recognize my body. In 2020, I moved to a new apartment, and pretty soon after, I developed a rash, insomnia, air hunger. I couldn't quench my thirst, frequent urination. I often couldn't remember words, and anxiety. I would lie in bed gasping for air, not being able to get any. In 2021, started going to training camp in the winter. I'd get crazy fit, return to my house, and be sidelined pretty immediately. My quads would completely stop working, and I would barely be able to run. This pattern kept happening. In 2023, I started to feel like I had tourniquets around my leg. Training for the Olympic trials, I could get through workouts, but efforts that used to feel appropriately hard were all out efforts. In March 2024...
It goes on for a very long time.
Okay.
But like those are some things that if you're hearing this could be affecting you. What she had was a mold exposure problem.
Yes.
And for those that are unfamiliar with that or don't realize how familiar that sounds, Kirk DeWitt also had a very, very similar problem back in college. And it took him out for years, just as it did for her as well.
Yeah,
This was just his college career. She is a elite marathoner, but still really, really scary. So know the warning signs of that.
She said that they found high levels of mycotoxins in her body. She moved out of her house in November, and pretty shortly after, running started to feel more normal.
Yeah, so we hope that she has a good continued recovery. We're going to finish up with 3 sets of podiums.
Perfect. High Rocks, Las Vegas, Nevada. The World Series of Fitness Racing. In third place for men, Bo Willis. In second place, Hunter McIntyre. And in first place, Dylan Scott. And for the ladies, in third place, Linda Meyer. In second place, Joanna Witzrook. And in first place, Lauren Weeks.
Next up, we're heading over to Arizona for the Spartan weekend, starting with the Super.
For the men, in third place, Noel Medina. In second place, Jeff Shady. And in first place, Matthew DeVillers. And for the women, in third place, Heather Bodie. In second place, Rachel Muniz. And in first place, Chloe McKillen.
Yep. Try again.
Melikian.
Because we just had her on last episode.
And for the Arizona Sprint, for the men, in third place, Dorian Fambelli. In second place, Louis Rogel. And in first place, Jeff Shady. And for the women, in second place, Candace Simpson. In first place, Rachel Muniz.
And who took third? We don't know because the competitive series is now the way that it is now. So, Dumb, unfortunately. 5 secret links down below, so go and check those out. But let's finally get to what this episode is all about.
What's it all about, Mikey?
Well, Evan Prepares went back to compete in his yearly Hannibal race, and he brought fellow World's Toughest Mudder athlete and now team member Christian Brown Johnson with him. So I wanted to have CBJ on to hear about his experience flying and competing in a race in Kuwait. So we discussed how it feels to join a team, how to minimize the impact of long-distance travel, competing in the 8K and 300-meter races, thoughts on hybrid races, and what's coming up for him this year, as well as many, many other things. So let's get to the interview with Christian. So we'll start off with your name and where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Christian Brown Johnson from Madera, California. If you don't know where that's at, that's understandable. We're right in the middle of California, basically. So right where all the farmland is.
Gotcha. So last time we saw you was World's Toughest Mudder. How long did your high last of finally getting that podium position at that race?
For a while, I'd say. Yeah, hitting 105 was just super surreal, taking third. It's funny because I wrote that on my mirror in my garage gym in Sharpie. I do a lot of that with my race goals throughout the year. And I just kept staring at it every day. I'd go work out or run on the treadmill. And I'm like, man, that's a lofty goal to hit. And it happened exactly as I wrote it down. And I still feel like I'm living off the high of it just a little bit. There's a lot of big things coming up this year that I really need to focus on. So, my mind is more in that direction. But yeah, that was a bucket list item for sure. And we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw that you were announced this year as a member of the Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro team. How did that come about?
So I've been friends with Evan for quite some time. I think I had messaged him a while ago asking about like how to find sponsors. And then he brought up, oh, well, I run this team and we're putting out some applications to bring on some more athletes. So he sent me over an application, even though he already knew everything about me, but he had to present that to the rest of the team. So I filled it out, and the whole team voted to bring me on. So got on board with them, and I'm super excited. A bunch of people I've known for a long time, and some new faces and other faces that I don't know yet. But everybody seems like pretty well-rounded OCR athletes.
Yeah, I gotta say it's a pretty stacked team. There's a few people that I wasn't very familiar with, and it's been a joy to kind of get to know them a little bit more. But it almost seems like he's getting a monopoly on World's Toughest Motor athletes. You guys are so good.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. But World's Toughest Motor, sorry, I can't even talk right now. World's Toughest Mudder, and just short course OCR, some ultra stuff, and Ninja Warrior as well. Some of the athletes are pretty well versed in Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of Evan, he's been traveling to compete in Hannibal races for years. What made you take the trip this year?
Well, it was kind of a last minute decision. He told me that he was going to go, and just told me about the race. I think I booked my flight about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks. And, I said, well, it's kind of reminiscent of last year because we were in the Middle East last February, right, for the Infinity in Saudi Arabia. So I figured, well, I can go see another place out there, and I've got some time that I can get away. And the race director, very, very, very wonderful. Actually, there's 2 race directors, but very wonderful people. They took care of us over there, and Evan told me that, hey, your expenses over here will be taken care of, your hotel, your food, your transportation. So I figured, well, I just got to get a flight and hopefully win some money back, which I did. So that was nice. But yeah, that's what made the decision a little easier. Was he told me how well the Hannibal race team was and how good they're going to take care of us. So that made deciding to leave the U.S. for 6 days a bit sweeter.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with Amin Dib. I've met him at OCRWCs in the past. He seems like a great guy. I'm not too familiar. Who's the other owner?
So we got Heba. Let me get their names for you here. I'm so bad with names. I could literally meet someone and they can tell me their name and I will forget it 5 seconds later. So Amin is from Lebanon. Super, super funny guy. Really cool. He's actually pretty well known because he's on MTV in Lebanon, and he's also a trainer. And he actually has dual citizenship. So he lives in the US, part of the year actually in Los Angeles, just a few hours south of me. Yeah, so the other owner is Heba and her husband. Very, very nice people. They were super supportive, and they actually invited us over to their home on Saturday evening for a big dinner, and they had a bunch of their race crew there, the builders and everybody that made the race happen. Super wonderful people.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. So it's obviously not a very close destination. What was the travel like? We talked a little bit before we started recording about Italy, that felt pretty long to us. Kuwait, obviously, much, much further. How was it?
So I usually always fly out of Fresno because that's a 30-minute drive to the airport for me.
Nice.
But flying out of Fresno to the other side of the world gets a little crazy, a little bit expensive, and you got to do 3 or 4 flights. So I ended up flying out of Los Angeles on Qatar. So 2 flights there, 2 flights back. And so driving down was about a 4.5-hour drive. And then I had a 16-hour direct flight to Doha, Qatar, a couple-hour layover, and then an hour-and-a-half flight over to Kuwait City. And then coming back, just reverse that hour-and-a-half to Doha. Then I actually had an 8-hour layover. Which was overnight. So I just walked around Doha airport the whole time. It's like one of the biggest airports in the world. It's super cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then that second flight back direct to Los Angeles was about 16.5 hours. And then about 5.5 hours to get home with traffic.
That's crazy.
So yeah.
So as an athlete, like what do you do to prepare your legs for that? Because it sucks for anyone to travel that far with whatever you have for leg room and everything. Like how do you get back to like peak performance after that much traveling?
Yeah, it's not easy, especially when you're eating plain food the whole time. I mean, on the long flights, they take care of you. They give you some decent food.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, your legs tend to swell up a little bit, and you're not hydrated enough. So when I got to Kuwait, it actually took me 2 hours to get out of the airport because I had to get a visa, go through customs, all that fun stuff. And bless our driver that was waiting for me because he waited for 3 hours for me
Wow.
to get out of the airport and to drive me to the hotel. But yeah, I got to the hotel at like midnight. So Wednesday, Evan and we went and did about a 5.5, 6 mile run just to shake out the legs. I did a little workout at the hotel gym, ate really well, hydrated enough. And then race day, we, just warmed up with about a little over a mile warm-up run, kind of around the course area. It's nice and easy, stretched out. I felt pretty good though. I mean, going from ultra races where it's like you got to be super dialed into something this short, I wasn't too worried about being perfectly on point with my hydration or nutrition. As long as I felt good going into it, I figured I'd be fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. What was the temperature like? So obviously California, known to be decently hot, but it's also more wintertime. What was the weather like?
So it was chilly overnight. It was in the low 50s in the mornings, a little windy. So both race days, we rode with Amin out to the course. So we left about 6 o'clock both mornings, got there about 6:45, 7. Race didn't start both days till about anywhere between 9 and 10 o'clock. So when we got out there, it was super windy, super cold. We're all bundled up. And then once the sun came out, it warmed up enough. Friday on the longer race, it was close to 70. It actually got a little bit warm. And then Saturday was a bit colder. It was, I'd say, low to mid 60s, but we had a cloud cover. So yeah, a lot colder.
Okay, yeah, that's not too bad. But before we get to the race, I feel like there's a little bit of a elephant in the room. I was telling someone else about this race, and they're like, just shocked at like Kuwait, really? Like, why would you go there? When people hear the Middle East, they think of the worst, which that's kind of the reputation it's gotten here in the U.S. through all sorts of media things. What was your perception of it? I know you were just there last year too, but what was your perception of it, and has it changed at all over the years?
I mean, I don't really watch the news ever. I think there's a lot of across the board just information that gets construed. And obviously, that's where most people in America, get their information about the Middle East from, right? It's like,
Hmm.
hey, there's wars going on. There's, this religion's fighting this religion. And, a lot of that stuff is prevalent, still going on in the Middle East, 100%. And it's a bad deal. But Saudi, Dubai, Qatar, Kuwait, I've had nothing but good experiences. The people there are very welcoming. And even in Kuwait, right? Like going over there, my family and friends were, thought it was kind of crazy, and they thought the same last year when I was going to the middle of nowhere in Saudi. Saudi actually seems a bit more crazy to me just thinking about it than
I think so
Kuwait.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, but the U.S. has good relations with Kuwait. I mean, we
Yes.
saved them in the 90s, and then also being there with Evan, who's ex-military Green Beret and who's done tours to Kuwait multiple times. He knows the area. He knows what he's doing. He can speak a little bit of the language. So I felt perfectly fine. We had no issues whatsoever. I mean, we ran about 17, 18 miles through the city throughout the trip and had no issues at all.
Good. Yeah, I think it's important to touch on that too, because there's a big stigma around that. But everyone that I know that has gone there, one of the countries in the Middle East had said that the hospitality has been excellent. So I think that's important to touch on too, because when people think of the Middle East, they think of just this. But you're right, there's a lot of countries that make up the Middle East too, and things vary country to country, just like things do here. So yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah, and I mean Kuwait's so small. We were in Kuwait City, which is practically, I mean, if you look at the map, really the only city in Kuwait, and then Iraq sits just north of Kuwait. And I even asked Evan too. I said, "Hey, can we drive up to the border just so I could step over and say I've been to Iraq?" And he's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that. If you go to the north end, they're a little more accepting, but the Iraqis and Kuwaitis don't really like each other still, and you don't really want to cross on the southern end." So I did not get to go to Iraq, but hopefully someday. But some cool history. I mean, I wouldn't say it's cool. It's kind of a bad deal, but where we raced was just a couple miles away from a very specific highway that was majorly involved in the 90s. It's called Death Road. It's where the Iraqis were fleeing Kuwait, and the U.S. was already present in Kuwait. So the U.S. and Kuwait surrounded the Iraqis on this highway because they were trying to leave, and they had maybe 30 miles to hit the Iraqi border, and they gave them the option to surrender, and they didn't. So the U.S. completely obliterated this whole Iraqi force on this road, and that's, I mean, right next to where we were racing in the desert.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
a perk to traveling to other countries is the food. So I want to hear a little bit. What did you eat for food out there?
So I couldn't give you any names of these dishes. It's right over my head. But the hotel we stayed at, a Lebanese guy owned the hotel, and they had a really nice restaurant there, and we ate there, 3 times a day. And the food was more Lebanese food, a little mix of, some of the local stuff. Some of the best food I have ever had. I would compare it mostly to like a Mediterranean restaurant in a way.
Okay, that's what I've heard.
You got your rice, you've got different meat dishes with like your yogurt sauce. I had some lamb, I had chicken. I mean, just the normal stuff, but with their twist of spices and the way they prepare it. Super, super good. Like I could eat that stuff every single day. It was so good. And their desserts too. I'm not really a sweets person, but Evan and I decided to try some desserts. Like I probably had the top 3 desserts I've ever had in my life while I was there. Just like a lot of pistachio flavored stuff, which I love pistachios.
Yep.
And they had this. So the last night we were there, we had this dish. It was a cotton candy based dish with this ice cream on it. And before we ordered it, I thought, like cotton candy, that's kind of weird. Like I don't want to eat cotton candy for dessert. But it was this super thick cotton candy that tasted like pistachio. And the ice cream on it tasted like it's pistachio ice cream. They had these little cookies on the side. That was incredible. Like I've never seen cotton candy like in these thick strands. So super interesting.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I'm all for trying new desserts and everything. Actually, Italy was when I realized that I don't like Venetian style cannolis. I like Sicilian cannolis, and there's a big difference. Big difference.
Did,
So
did you go to Sicily?
I did get the chance to. I know we talked about that. The furthest we got down was Sorrento, but I finally got to see Pompeii, which I've wanted to see since I was a little kid, and it lived up to the expectation. It was very cool. But if we do go back, I definitely want to go to Sicily because I've heard great things. Again, people like, oh, the mob, the mob. The mob doesn't give a shit about you. Like
No, they don't.
Exactly. We're nobodies out there. So so let's get to the races themselves. I saw that there's the 8K and then the 300-meter race. How did you feel preparing for these races? Again, you're known as like an ultra athlete.
Yeah, I felt good going into it. The week prior, I cut the mileage back a little bit and just kind of focus on some more speed work. And I'm the type of guy that loves a good treadmill. Especially with my schedule, it makes things a little easier. So I was doing a lot of treadmill speed work and just getting the legs ready. So I felt good going into it. And I was really curious to see, okay, well, I've been putting in super high mileage for, quite some time now, since before WTM. So I really didn't know where I was going to place. My goal was top 3, and I also wrote that on my mirror. So I think I have a magic mirror in the garage because things keep happening. So top 3 of both races was my goal. Going into it, we kind of previewed the course a little bit beforehand, and we started in the first elite wave. So my goal was just literally take off and run as hard as I possibly could. And not to the point where I'm just going to fall over, I have to stop. But my heart rate was an average of like 175 the whole time. I mean, I remember looking down at one point, it was at a 190. I'm like, I'm just going to keep rolling. Let's go. So little sandy here and there, but it was mostly hard pack ground. The obstacles were pretty simple stuff. A lot of the main obstacles until the very end were climb over a wall, climb under this barbed wire. Kind of some easier things. And they had a couple hills up and down. It's about 800 feet of elevation gain. But basically, it was just run as hard as you possibly can. And then you get back to their village, and that's where the main obstacles basically are. There's 7 obstacles, and you got your rings, you got a rope pull with a kettlebell at the end, kind of like the Spartan one where you have to pull it all the way up. Climb over a rig, do a rope climb. I'd say the rope climb was probably 15, 20 feet. Hit a bell at the top. Crawl through this pit of water under these wires and then cross the finish line. So it was a super quick race. The total distance ended up being about 4.63 miles. And the funny thing is that there were some really good marathon runners out there, like guys that are ridiculously fast. And when we took off, this group of these 3 guys were ahead of me the whole time. And I knew I wasn't going to catch them. I'm like, I'm not that fast, but I'm good at obstacles. So we get to the very end where all the obstacles are in the village. And I come off the rings, I go through this rig, and I turn the corner to run towards the rope climb. All 3 of those guys are sitting there doing burpees, and they were like a good minute and a half, 2 minutes ahead of me. And they're doing burpees, so I jump on the rope, boom, boom, hit the bell, cross the finish line, and beat all 3 of those guys that were ahead of me the whole race.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was funny because we were talking to them afterwards, and we found out just how fast they are. They were telling us, marathon times and 5K times. And then they asked us, how do you do these obstacles? Like, how do you train to do these obstacles? Like, well, it's just, a lot of strength work, grip work. And, I personally don't train obstacles consistently. I think I just have muscle memory from the thousands of obstacles from 11 years of Tough Mudders. But yeah, it was crazy to see a lot of those athletes out there were very, very fast on the run, but they'd go and hit the rings and they would just hang from the ring and flop around. They had no concept of how to swing, of how to do a rope climb, like none of that. It was absolutely crazy to see.
It's funny how much we take for granted of because it's body awareness. Like you said, it's upper body strength, but more than that, it's grip strength. Like you could have a great upper body, like a bodybuilder, but if you don't have grip strength to handle that. Like, there's that meme of like, you have no power here from Lord of the Rings, and that's all I can think of when I see people lining up at the start, like flexing this and that. I'm like, it's the difference between like show and go muscle, but
Yeah.
marathoners too, I could see that being an obstacle.
Yeah.
Did we talk about like what the surface was? Was it sandy or?
It was mostly hard packed, but we had some pretty sandy areas, especially going up the hills and then coming down. It was very nice coming down because you could just absolutely open up and go as fast as you wanted because you had all the absorption from the sand. Going up was a little bit more difficult. I think there was only one spot where I slowed down my pace to kind of like a speed hike for maybe 10-15 seconds. And everything else was just go, 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 go as fast as you possibly can. But good course overall. I didn't know if it was going to be completely flat or if we were going to have a bunch of hills, but the little mix of hills that we had was perfect.
Yeah. And then did you say what your placement was for the 8K?
So I took third overall and second age group.
Awesome. And then going into the event on Saturday, which was the 300 meter, even shorter, how were you feeling going into that one?
I was feeling good. Surprisingly, I was actually slightly sore from the day before, and I think it's just because I'm not used to running that hard.
That
short distance,
short and spicy hurts. It does, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I felt it a little bit, but going into the 300, I mean, we literally started, and then you go over this little hill, you turn left. You hit 2 angled walls, and you make another left, and then you're right in the village where you have there's about those last 7 obstacles. So it was just absolutely go as hard as you possibly can and just be super reckless. Evan and I both tore ourselves up more in the 300 than we did on the 8K. Like my elbow was bleeding, I peeled finger off my skin from the rope, my knees were bleeding. And we're both sitting there looking at each other after. It's like, yeah, in a race like this, you just, you're throwing yourself at the obstacles, and you have like that no care attitude because you're trying to get over everything as quickly as possible because every second absolutely counts at the end. Evan actually ran before me, so the race format went one at a time.
Okay, like time trial.
And yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. So in the very beginning, they started one person, and then a couple minutes later they started another. Then a few people kind of caught up to each other, but then it was more so just okay, one person. Okay, they're pretty much at the end. All right, start. So Evan ran, and then I started, I'd say 3 to 5 minutes after him, and I crossed, and I went over to the tent to see what my time was, and I beat Evan by like 2 seconds.
Ooh.
I was like, yes, and him and I were in first and second place at that time. So we were watching all the other guys go, and we were doing some recording for some Instagram reels for Evan. And we're watching people, and we're like, oh man, that guy's jamming. He's super quick. Let's see how he does on the obstacles. And they would get to the rings, and then once again, like couldn't get through them. So the guy that had won the day before comes up, like towards the end, comes through, just obliterates everything.
Oh, wow.
So his time was 2 minutes 31 seconds. I was 3:05. Evan was 3:07. There was a 3:08, a 3:09, and then it jumped up to like the 3:20s. Like that's how much faster that guy was than the rest of us.
So who the hell was that guy? Was he like, obviously he has some knowledge about obstacles?
Yeah, he's from the UAE. I forget his name, but him and his team. So I think they've done the Dubai games.
Okay.
Or actually, they just did the medal games, but I think they've done the Dubai games in the past as well. But his whole team showed up to race individually both days. So he took first the first day. Another one of his teammates took second. And then I was third. And then second day, he took first. I took second. And then those other guys, they were somewhere down the line. But he's a monster. Like, yeah. He's fast.
What was the overall vibe like when, people were finishing? Because it's a little different time trial wise, where you're not all at the finish line talking to people. Where was everyone just sharing strategies? What was it like, between competitors?
Hard to say, I guess. Everyone was in really positive moods. The event village was good. They had a Red Bull Jeep out there with a DJ in it, playing music, and everyone's just kind of chit chatting. There were a lot of Kuwaitis there. We had we weren't the only Americans there. There was actually some other ones I think that were in Kuwait for work. Um, UAE guys. I think there are a few people from some other places as well. But everybody just, kind of chatted it up and got to know each other. I think there was more talking kind of after we finished our waves, kind of talking with the people that were near us or that, were right behind us or beat us, like, hey, like, good job. You did, crushed it. And, just kind of getting feedback from each other. Other than that, yeah, it was, the Kuwaiti, their style over there, most people were pretty covered up. The women, some of them were wearing their full, I forget what you call it.
Hijab.
Yeah, hijab. Yep. Some of them had almost the full thing on. They had their faces exposed, but I saw some women racing in the whole outfit, and then some were just wearing like tights and a long sleeve. So that was, different to see. And the guys were mostly wearing shirts. There were a couple guys with no shirts on. So not like a normal US race where it's like wear the least amount of clothing as possible.
Yes. Yep.
So a little different, but really cool to experience. Ida, Matilda was there.
Yep.
So we got to hang out with her, and we interviewed her, and got to see her at the Red Bull Kuwait event at a gym on Thursday, so the day before the first race.
Nice.
So, and she wasn't even supposed to race. She just jumped in on the 8K. She's wearing road shoes and took first place overall. She actually finished, I think, a minute and a half behind me, but she was jamming.
She's impressive. She really is.
Yeah. So it's cool to see her there. But she's actually she's out in Dubai right now. She's got the Dubai games coming up, so she's training for that.
That makes sense. Something that could be quite a barrier with, talking to athletes from different places is like the language barrier. So how many of them, I guess percentage wise, like spoke English? Did you have a translator? What was that like?
Most of them spoke English or some broken English. I only had a few interactions with like some of our drivers for transportation that it was kind of difficult to get some things across, but pretty much everybody had a little bit of English in their vocabulary, so they understood what we could say, and we were able to get the point across.
Yeah, that's awesome. So seeing what you saw there, racing there, obviously OCR is relatively new in some areas of the world more than others. What are your thoughts of the growth of the sport in the Middle East?
Oh, I love it. I love racing out there. I hope I can go back every year to race out there. In the US, I think it's more of a culture thing here. It's just OCR isn't as popular as it once was. High Rocks is a big thing. High Rocks is a huge thing out in the Middle East right now as well.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the people there are High Rocks athletes, and there's some good ones there too. So I think High Rocks is definitely taking over the world right now in that aspect. And I got some different opinions on whether CrossFit's going to last much longer or not, with the rise of High Rocks.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as OCR goes, I think what they got out there is a good thing. They're running 1-2 events with Hannibal a year at different places. And they have a pretty decent turnout. It's not anything like the numbers that a Tough Mudder or Spartans turning out. I know they've gotten some of that in the past, but I think in total between the 2 days there was probably 400 plus people that showed up to race. But I mean it's cool to see because Kuwait city is so small compared to like a normal state in the US. So you're taking people from a small pool of population, to come out to the desert to go run around, do something they've never done before, or come out to race. But I think they're doing a good thing. I'd really like to see Hannibal in the US. I think they could tap into kind of a simpler OCR model with the shorter course stuff. Obviously, we've seen companies come and go. Tough Mudder, I think Tough Mudder is on its way out, honestly, in the US. I think that'll be more of a European thing in the upcoming years. So we need something to replace it. Obviously, we got Spartan, and I think that'll stick around. But this was just kind of a different vibe,
Yeah.
Not as like, Spartan's got so many different races, so many different, oh, win this medal, win this thing, do that. It's like I haven't even tapped into Spartan. I've done a few Spartans, but I've never really cared to. I'm like, you guys have so many different freaking avenues to go down. Like it's almost seems a little confusing. But having just a simple race format like this, where it's like, show up, you're going to run this one race. If you want to come back tomorrow and run this other one, come back, and we're gonna give you prizes. They have some of like the biggest sponsors out there. And when you podium, they literally pay you in US dollars cash on the stadium. I'm still waiting for money from World's Toughest.
Jesus. Yeah. I mean, ideally, that's the way it should be.
Cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's taking care of the athletes, and that's something that we've seen diminish a lot in the US. I know, as you said, Tough Mudder is going to be doing very well in Europe. I think everything is going to be doing well in Europe and other places, Middle East, hopefully too, up and coming. But yeah, Tough Mudder's not doing too well. There's only like two toughest mudders now, and it's like they're focusing on like infinity, and it's just things are going the way that they're going. But I think it'd be great if you were to bring something here. We need more of a variety. We don't have much. Most of the things on the East Coast that we've had are gone. I know the West Coast doesn't have as much as they used to. There seems to be a decent contingent of local races in the middle of the country. I don't know if it's a coincidence that's where Spartan isn't. But that's a factor as well. So I think it'd be awesome, especially since Amin has dual citizenship. Like, yeah, start one here too. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but I would love and support that a lot.
Yeah, and where he's at right now, he's got some connections to where he was telling us a couple things. It sounds like they might be able to get tied in with some bigger avenues out in the Middle East to really explode Hannibal here in the next couple years. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. As far as bringing it to the US, I think it'd be a little tough. But I think just with their simple business model and what they're doing and the sponsors they have backing them right now for being that small, like it's, they got Lululemon, they've got Spy, they've got Ram, Dodge Ram trucks. They've, all these different businesses literally are sponsors of, or Red Bull too.
That's huge.
Big time for a small race with 400 people. So they've got a good future ahead of them, I think. So I hope the best for them, and definitely want to go race some more of these out there.
Yeah, hell yeah. So quick side tangent, you mentioned CrossFit and hybrid racing. What are your thoughts on those sports? Any interest in the hybrid racing?
Yeah, so actually when I had first started doing Tough Mudders, I was very heavy into CrossFit. And that's kind of where I found some athletic ability that I had. I was never a very heavy lifter. I loved doing Olympic lifts. But I was more of an endurance guy. And that's when I started to kind of tap into, I think I can be a long endurance guy and I need to start running. And, I kind of put CrossFit to the wayside, which led me to where I am now as an athlete. But High Rocks, I think, is fantastic because it's very structured. You know exactly what you're going to do. You got your endurance aspect. You got obviously all your weights. You got to push, pull. And it's, anybody can go do it. You don't have to be a super badass athlete to go do it. I see people that aren't athletic go and do it and still have a good time and push themselves. And it's just like, okay, I know what I'm showing up to. I know what I'm going to do. This was my time. I want to drop my time by a couple minutes this next time and keep moving further down the time spectrum. As far as CrossFit goes, I think CrossFit shot themselves in the foot last year. Yes. And, well deserved why they're getting the lashback that they are. Yep. I don't know, man. It's tough to say. I think CrossFit has built a worldwide phenomenon. It's made a lot of people in the world healthy, so I give them kudos for that. We've seen some incredible athletes come from it, but now we're seeing a lot of CrossFit athletes tap into High Rocks, and a lot of CrossFit athletes that aren't going back after last year. And to have someone pass away on a swim, like you don't program a hard run straight into a swim. No. Like I've done Ironmans. Like I know you don't do that.
And if you do that, you have actual lifeguards there, and then you don't lie about what the parents of the deceased man had said. So many things that went wrong there. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it especially being as warm as it was, and yeah, that was such a sad deal. Watching the video of that, there was literally somebody on a paddleboard right next to where he went under, and they're like, "Yep, nope, didn't see him for 3 hours." Like, come on. So I think CrossFit is also slowly on its way out. It'll be around for a while, but personally, I think it's going to go away or minimize. Say in the next 5 years or so. I think High Rocks will be the next CrossFit, honestly. And we'll see if they expand their events into something bigger. More of like how we have the CrossFit Games, right? Where you got multi-day. Well, maybe they'll make like a multi-day High Rocks competition. I think that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's been really, really interesting to see all the athletes, many of the athletes speaking up and saying, "Hey, this is my primary like source of income and this and that, and I'm no longer supporting it." Like that takes balls to actions speak louder than words, and I'm really impressed with a lot of the athletes and the ones that are still doing it. No shade to them too, but I completely agree. I think High Rocks and even DECA to some extent, it's going to be really useful to. OCR is great, but you can't truly compare your time across races. But the standardization, on one hand, kills the adventure side. But if you like the standardization and you're all about working on your weaknesses, that's a perfect event for you. I need to work on this station. You work on that station. This one might go down a little bit. We'll work more on that one. And it's really interesting. I did a DECA and loved it a lot more than I thought it would, especially the team races too. I think that is going to be a huge financial boon to the sport as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. And one thing that Ida was telling us after she did that race, she's like, I miss this. I miss OCR. I miss doing obstacles, the varying terrain, being outdoors. She's like, this was nice. I need to get back into doing more of this versus High Rocks. I think what needs to come out next is they need to bring back a version of TMX.
Yeah.
What was it? One TMX and I forget what year it was. It was
that 2 years, and then that was it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember I did it once. But that essentially is like a DECA or High Rocks mixed with outdoor OCR.
Yeah.
Like that's badass. That's awesome. Like that there should be more of that. So I hope somebody brings that back. I would definitely enjoy doing that. Some short course, regular type of obstacles with, okay, now you're going to pull this sled or you're going to lift this barbell or whatever it might be. That'd be sweet. That would build super well-rounded athletes.
I worked for an event company years ago, like 2015, 2016, and they put on an event called Runzilla. And what it was, if you wanted to do all three events, there was a 5K, there was an OCR, and then it was a hybrid race years before hybrid racing was even a thing. And if that were around now, it would be huge. So I would love to see more of that too.
Yeah. Somebody needs to break the mold a little bit and bring out something that kind of combines everything that's popular right now.
Yeah. So going back to the Hannibal race, and any final thoughts on your trip there, how you were taken care of, the race?
I was well taken care of, which I thought was very, very nice. I guess you could say I'm sponsored by Raw Nutrition. I'm quote unquote an athlete for them. And I get some free products, but I've never like been sponsored quote unquote by anybody where it's like, hey, we're gonna pay you to do this or whatever. So I kind of felt like I was a sponsored athlete going over there because the hotel, all of our food, our drivers, transportation, all taken care of while we were there the whole time. I just had to cover the flight. So that was super nice. And, I can't say thank you enough to the race directors for taking care of us. Kuwait, it's beautiful. There's not a lot to do there whatsoever. There's some other stuff I wish we could have squeezed in to go see. But we saw as kind of as much as we could around Kuwait City while we were there. And would have loved to go to Iraq, but that wasn't in the books. Maybe one of these days.
Right.
But yeah, the race was fantastic. I've personally, I feel like I'm still kind of living off a high from just racing these short races the other day.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of impressed myself a little bit. Like I was saying earlier, going from doing just super high mileage weeks of not too much speed work to podiuming at a 8K and a 300 meter. That, made me feel pretty good about myself. So, like I said on one of my Instagram posts the other day, I'm coming back home with a humble chip on my shoulder, knowing I can run 100 miles and also podium at a 300 meter race. It's pretty awesome.
Right.
But yeah, I think, anybody else out there that races, whatever distance you race, I recommend travel to race if you can, if you have the means to do so. It's incredible. It's so nice when you show up to a race course and you're in the middle of nowhere on the other side of the world and you're just sitting there thinking like, why am I here? Like, how did I get here? What am I doing out here? And then you go race and have a great day and meet new people, make new connections. I mean, I made some business connections while I was there, met some new friends. Yeah, it's just such a good life experience overall. To take the racing out of it, just the other experiences are, going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Going back to the well-roundedness, what's next for you now? I remember you mentioning, I think it was the Arizona Monster, which is like a 300-mile race. What else is in the plans for 2025 now?
Yeah, Arizona Monster 300, April 4th through the 11th. That one scares the shit out of me. So that's going to be interesting. I've tapped into the potential of a couple days of racing in the past on no sleep. This is going to be just like the title says, it's going to be a monster. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to come out of the other end and just have that experience under my belt. Then after that, WTM is a maybe right now. Okay. I was telling Evan the other day that I was more so planning to go out to maybe pit for somebody. But then I saw Josh Fiore post on our race page that he wants to win it. And that immediately triggered a switch in my brain to think, well, I can't let you win. So might have to try to come out and beat you. So we'll see. We'll see how the body's feeling after the 300. I know it's gonna take a bit to get back. And then July, possibly going to race Hannibal in Lebanon.
Nice.
And then the biggest event of the year, doing a Guinness World Record attempt in November. So it's about, well, all I can say is this: it's 7 days long, and it involves some worldwide travel.
Very
so
cool.
There, it's a record. It's a record that no male has ever set as of yet, and it's very, very difficult logistically to make happen. So I got the record title certified by Guinness. The logistics and the planning and the trip is already booked, ready to go. The certifications and the correct people are in place. Now I just got to go do it. And hope for no weather delays or travel delays. But yeah, I plan on releasing some more, or actually the full information on that down the road a little bit. Just I don't want to tell the world just yet, because someone else can easily go on Guinness and say, "Oh, I'm going to sign up for this title right here," which would be very difficult for them to do because of the logistics of it and timing of things. It's very tricky.
Yeah.
So as of now, pretty soon I'm going to be trying to reach out to some companies to see if I can give them something with this endeavor to potentially, get some of their support. So if there's anybody out there that would like to support a Guinness World Record and you want to talk privately about what I'm going to do, we could definitely talk. But it's going to be pretty big. This last year I started looking into some things and what some athletes and friends were doing that were, massive, like adventures or just races or whatever. It's like, people running across the US, people running 400 plus miles across this territory and breaking, a time record or whatever the case is. But this is something that nobody does. Awesome. That's very rare. So like, I need to find something like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to pry in this, but when you do announce it, we will share it on the show in quick news, because that sounds very exciting. But
yeah,
going back to the multi-day events, another huge aspect of World's Toughest Mudder that I feel like is my favorite part of it is the community. And in that, you've been able to rub shoulders with like Elliot Reeb. He was the first one that came to mind. These like multi-day race, Trevor Psychos, like that's hundreds and hundreds of miles races. Do you use them as like resources when you're planning to take on those events, like the Arizona Monster?
So Elliot is actually doing the Arizona Monster as well.
Sounds about right. Okay.
So yeah, so yeah, we're actually staying in the same Airbnb. His parents are going to be out there, helping with kind of crew. I actually need to get on the ball with getting some logistics together because as of now, I've got Jake Ramsby. He's going to come pace. I need to get one more pacer, and then kind of plan out my time frames. I've been lacking. Elliot's already got everything planned out, his times, his gear checklist. I'm over here like, well, I'll probably do that the week before I go out there. But yeah, no, I think we all kind of lean on each other for certain things. Just depending on the races, but yeah, we all kind of have our own lives too, and just kind of jump into some races here and there, and don't really tell anybody. It's like, oh, hey, cool, nice, good race. Or Elliot, who's doing 200+ mile races every year, multiple times a year. It's you end up getting invited to come pace, and you always got to say yes because that's a pretty awesome adventure.
Yeah, love it. Jealous. I eventually want to work my way up to that, but it's so much time, and when you're slow like me, it's like I can't do the mileage in the day. It just doesn't work that way. But someday, working up to 100-miler, I think that'd be awesome.
Heck yeah, no, you got it, man. You got it. I got a buddy that was asking me the other day. There's a race that holds a 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour, and 100-mile option, and I've done 3 of them for their 100 miles. And he texted me. He said it was actually in a group message with me and one of our other friends. He said, oh, should I sign up for the 6 or 12-hour? I said, what are you doing? Sign up for the 24 because you're going to get out there, finish the 12, and then think, I had a little bit more. I should have done the 24. So I'm trying my hardest to talk him into sign up for it. I said, if you don't sign up for it, I'm going to sign you up for it. So when you show up, your name's going to be on the 24.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to do it.
I have a race. Actually, it's right. I have the map of it right over there. It's Infinitus, nice. Which is put on by the Endurance Society. So when Spartan first started, it was Joe DeSena and his business partner. And his business partner is the one that puts on this event after they broke up. And it was my first marathon. It was on the trails, on the mountains. And they do an 8K, an 88K, and an 888K. So the marathon is essentially just like the kids course, which I thought was really interesting.
Wow.
With everyone there. So
and 888K?
Yeah, very few people have finished it.
Damn. I thought the Arizona Monster was like one of the longest in the US.
Oh,
definitely not.
It's up there. There's always a bigger fish, but yeah, no, the 300 is still
crazy.
Nuts.
What's the time? Okay, well, I got to do my kilometer math. That's over 500.
Is
it like 550?
I can't do it off the top of my head. It's a lot. And I know that
I'm Googling this.
I know Dean Carnass, I think Dean took it on. Oh no, was it? I know Fiore did it. I don't know if he did the full 888. I think he just did the 88, but
so it's 551.7 miles.
Yeah, I have to look into how many days you have to finish it, but I think there's been 5 or 6 finishers.
Dude, that's like probably a 2-week finish time.
Yeah, absurd. And I know that he puts out like stuff on course to kind of like fuck with you too. Like he'll put masks on the trees and stuff, so like you're hallucinating and it's like, oh no, that's really a thing. But
no, dude, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. No. Like when I did the Drift 100, we were out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming in the snow with snow blizzards. In the middle of the night, I kept seeing structures like smoke, like a fireplace was coming, smoke was coming out of a building. Kept seeing people out in the snow, and I would look over and be like, what is that guy doing out there? Dude, it's trippy because none of that was real. There was absolutely nothing around. Putting a mask in the tree, that's not cool. That's messed up.
I remember Trevor talking about one of the races he did, and I think he like fell asleep in the snow, and like an old woman helped him, and like the old woman didn't exist or something crazy like that. Like that's
wow,
good stuff. So yeah. coming to a close, I know you mentioned a few of them, but like any sponsors or people that you'd like to thank?
Yeah, Raw Nutrition. I use them for all my supplements, race fuel. They got a product called Raw Fuel that's 3 sources of carbs and sodium as well. So I've used a lot of that for Ironman training, for my ultra training. NVDM coaching. They've actually, the owner, Natasha, she was my coach for a little over 3 years until recently. I'm just doing my own programming now. It's definitely been a blessing in my life, and actually coach for her company as well. So I do ultra endurance coaching, training for a 5K marathon, any level of triathlon, I can coach you. Outside of that, Mud Gear Hannibal team, just stoked to be on with them now and with Evan, and to get this opportunity in Kuwait. That was incredible. And then I guess I'll just give a shout out to my cold plunge company, Valley Cold Plunges. So if you go to valleycoldplunges.com, we've got different cold plunge models on there, shipped nationwide. So yeah, if you're looking for a cold plunge, I can definitely help you out.
Yeah, awesome. And actually, real quick, a question about the team. Why did you pick Richter?
Okay, so they asked me what Super Mario Bros. Character, and like I have no idea. So I literally just Googled characters. I don't know much about all that. I mean, I know a little bit from when I was a kid, right? But I just started looking through, and I'm like, this looks good. So I asked him, is this one taken? I said no. I was like, all right, just put this one on there.
Because I was looking at it,
I have no idea.
I'm like, that one's more of a deep cut than all the other ones, but I just wasn't sure.
I don't even know what he does. Like, what does he represent?
He's from Castlevania, so I think he like goes and like kills Dracula.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Cool. Yeah. All right, so I picked a good one. I was just worried I was gonna pick something absolutely off the wall, and someone was gonna be like, "What? What do you mean? Like, why'd you pick that?"
Gotcha. And then, where can people follow you on social media and stay tuned for your announcement that will be coming up?
Yeah, so I'm mostly just on Instagram at Christian Brown Johnson, so my full name altogether. And then my cold plunge page at Valley Cold Plunges. Facebook, all my Instagram stuff just gets transferred to my Facebook. So same thing, Christian Brown Johnson. Other than that, I don't think I'm on anything else. I keep it pretty simple. I don't like to have 20 different social medias. So yeah, give me a follow. I try to post my training daily. I started doing that a couple weeks ago, just short clips, and then I post, I've been posting stuff from Kuwait, and I'll keep you guys updated on the races coming up. So if you have any questions on training or what I have coming up, feel free to message me. I'm an open book.
And I love the video of you running on the treadmill, writing, and how to beat Evan. So whatever it was works.
That like I was actually watching, because whenever I'm running on a treadmill, there's a TV on my wall in front of me that you can't see. That's in the video. So I was actually watching videos of Hannibal race to kind of see what the obstacles look like, and then a bunch of the videos were from Evan, and I randomly like had the thought like I should make a funny clip while I'm running, and like try to write out like I'm taking notes watching his film. So I just slapped that together. I thought that was freaking funny.
Yeah, no, I thought it was very good. Awesome. Well,
I feel like I make myself laugh more than I probably make other people laugh. I don't know if that's weird or not, but I'll finish doing a video like that. I'm like, that's hilarious.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations on a very successful weekend, and looking forward to seeing what happens for the rest of 2025 for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me back on, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Christian Brown Johnson. I very much look forward to telling people the awesome thing that you have planned. For related episodes, a bunch.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Episode 255.
World's Toughest Mudder, Part 2, brunch interviews and audio. That was the first time that we had him on the show.
Episode 286.
The final, Indian Mud Run with Miranda Huber, who is his team member.
Episode 325.
Georgia Savage Point Series race with Jamie Horianopoulos, who's also on the pro team.
Episode 343.
Rachel Waters on Hannibal race, Lionheart's 100, Savage Race Chicago, Mental Health and more. This was also Hannibal race.
Episode 358.
Was the second time that we had him on the show. World's Toughest Mudder 2023, Part 1, Community Dinner and Race Day interviews.
Episode 371.
Sarah Grippy Snyder on RV Life, Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro Team, and 3GX Mental Performance Training because of the teammate.
Episode 384.
Sweat Check, Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro Team, Ultra House Tryouts, and more with Noel Medina.
Episode 399.
Winning Toughest Mudder Chicago with Jenny Overstreet, also a team member.
Episode 402.
Josh Fiore on winning Spartan Killington Ultra and Unfinished Business at World's Toughest Mudder.
Episode 411.
One of the more recent times we had CBJ on the show, World's Toughest Mudder 2024, Part 2, Race Day Interviews with Athletes, Volunteers, and Pit Crew.
And episode 413.
The last time that we had him on the show previous to this was World's Toughest Mudder 2024, Part 4, Bar Crawl Interviews.
If you like what you hear, subscribe and follow to our podcast. We are on all of the podcast players. And if you would like to leave us a review, please do so on the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone.
Yeah, you can like and follow us on social media. You can also support us over on Patreon. Please join on the website and not on the app because Apple will charge you extra. So you'll get all sorts of fun behind-the-scenes perks.
Coming up next,
we are going to be driving 3.5 hours to Underdog Fitness.
Hours.
I think so. No, it's 3.5 hours to New Jersey.
Right.
2 hours?
I don't know, but that's a lot of driving.
We'll check it. To Underdog Fitness to support Kevin and Jess and cover the first DECA Atlas event. So that is the plan for next episode. Caitlin, do you have a joke or a quote?
I do. Why did the windows all go to the doctor?
Because they had pains.
Oh, yeah, you got that. And then my quote is from Morgan Harper Nichols, and she said, choosing to have joy is not naively thinking everything will be easy. It is courageously believing that there is still hope even when things get hard.
Nice. Well, that just about wraps it up. My name is Michael Stefano.
And my name is Caitlin Ritter.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you're feeling motivated, inspired,
And ready to take on your next race or training run.
If you've enjoyed this week's episode, leave us a review
And share it with your fellow adventurous friends.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Obstacle Running Adventures.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Join us every week for more news,
Stories and interviews from the community.
Our intro song was Streaker by Straight Up.
And our outro music is Iron Paw by The Best.
How's everything been since WTM?
Busy. Finally went on that honeymoon. So Italy was just as beautiful as you two said. So it's very, very glad to finally experience that.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. Perfect. We'll end it there. And I'll